Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Schaefer, host of the Finding Love Summit, and I'm pleased to welcome Sarah Schulting-Kranz to the summit this year. In our conversation, Sarah and I talk about the role of nature and forgiveness in recovery from trauma. It's not necessarily intuitive that nature and forgiveness go hand in hand, but for Sarah it did, and she paints a wonderful picture of how nature facilitates forgiveness, the role nature can play, and the 4 steps to self-forgiveness. Sarah Schulting-Kranz is an author, keynote speaker, trauma and personal leadership authority, wilderness guide, and expert in utilizing nature in healing. As a multiple trauma survivor, Sarah, like millions of others in this world, suffered from severe complex PTSD that almost took her life, and it could have left her 3 children motherless. She navigated through her anger, pain, and grief while hiking 14,000-foot mountains and paddling 4 miles out to sea with whales and dolphins. Through this process, she found that the most important relationship you can have is the one with yourself. Sarah coaches clients, leadership executives, and organizations on the necessity and benefits of using nature for mental and emotional health. Sarah's book, Walk Through This, Harness the Healing Power of Nature and Travel the Road to Forgiveness, is available wherever you buy your books. Please enjoy my conversation with Sarah Schulting-Kranz. Well, hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so happy you could be on the summit this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have such an incredible story to tell about your journey from what you've gone through and how you've gotten to where you're at today. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on. I love doing these. My journey, and I'm not going to go too deep into it just because I would rather get to the part of I like it, the thriving space. There's the story and then there's like the exciting how do we use all of this?
Yeah.
So I am a multiple trauma survivor. I, at the age of 17, experienced my first trauma when I was raped by somebody that I knew. And I wrote a book, and my book details a lot of what had happened during that time. What I experienced a lot of was trauma that was relational betrayal trauma, which I didn't even realize that at the time that's what it was called. I didn't know. Yeah. And then there was a lot of trauma because, the cops they refused to press charges. We tried, but they would not press charges. And which is, that was way back in the 90s and the early 90s. And now today we still see that type of thing happen. Yeah. And so I talk very openly about it because it's something that it was so devastating back at the age of 17. And it also, I talk about it sometimes to the degree where it's like, I want people to know that they're not alone if they're in a situation like that, because I felt so alone at the age of 17.
Right.
Fast forward, I became an art teacher, and then at the age of 40 experienced my second round of major trauma. I was 40 years old, 17 years into my marriage, when I found out that my husband had been betraying me for most of our marriage, 14 years of it. And he came out as gay. And it was a devastating time in my life. What it did, though, and this is where I don't want to stay in the story too much because I want everybody to understand that there is something beyond the story. What I did was learn so much at the age of 40. I was reminded of what I walked through at the age of 17 and utilized all of that to be able to overcome what had happened at the age of 40. I'm 48, happier than ever. I always talk about the fact that there's 3 parts in our journey, and we fall, into these parts at different times. One is the victim. We're victims of many things in our life. Some, what we consider to be not as big as others. Little T traumas, big T traumas. I've experienced a lot of both, clearly. And then there's the survivor space, which is where you're like good again. It's like, I'm good again. I feel good again, right? And which is great. That's a good place to be. And then there's the thriver space, which is the space that I call it's like from here on, right? And that's the space of utilizing what you've lived through in order to help others and continue on your own journey of enlightenment. And how do I continue to create a life that is filled with my peace and freedom? Doesn't mean that when we're in the thriver that we don't, go back to survivor or victim again. We do. And the one thing that I have really utilized and realized through this journey is that when we do sometimes fall back into victim, when we do sometimes step into the survivor, we're like, okay, I'm feeling good today, but not great, which happens to all of us. Yeah. When we learn so much more about who we are in that thriver space, we don't stay down in the victim or the survivor space as much as we know how to come out of that and step back into that thriver space and beyond. And, I think that I know there's two pieces to my recovery that was huge and got me to that space of thriver. And I can continue to work on this today. One is utilizing nature in my recovery. It was huge. If I didn't have the outdoors, if I didn't have, the ocean, the water, the land, the mountains, the grass, the trees, the clouds, whatever nature means to you, which is embodied within each one of us as well. If I didn't have that, I don't know, I wouldn't be who I am today. And then the second thing is that through the power of nature, I found the power of forgiveness. And so that's the tool that I really dive into now today with people, is this part of forgiveness that truly needs to be utilized more in the world. And it always starts with self, right? There's self-forgiveness, there's forgiveness for others, and then there's forgiveness for the world. And the one thing that I have had to work deeply on more than anything is that forgiveness, that internal deep forgiveness for myself, for continuously falling back into the patterns of my past, not realizing why, giving myself a lot of grace and compassion as to why I fell back into that space again, and sometimes again, and sometimes again, and sometimes still do, by the way. I'm like, wait a second here. I've been here before, and it didn't feel good the last time, and it still doesn't feel good today. What's going on here? Right. And then it's through that continual learning, because we're all human, right? It's that continual learning, and really showing up vulnerably and authentically every single day for yourself and for others, that we really get into that space of, how do I what is the journey that I want to be on? Right. And how do I want to use everything that I've lived through to create a life that I love? Because we're all meant here for a reason. Yes. So, that's my space of, that's the work I do. And I love it. Yeah. I love it. I don't know what else to say. I just freaking love it.
Yeah. And you help other people on their journey through their space. Yeah, that's awesome.
I do. I do.
I want to talk a little bit about I want to talk about the forgiveness, but I want to start with the nature. Like you said, you found forgiveness through being in nature. And I'm curious, what 80% of us live in cities.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And in cities, we see trees, we have parks, but I feel like I grew up in a rural area and have been very close to the mountains and the beach, the ocean. And I know that it's nice to be in a park, but it's not the same. It's not as, to me, it doesn't feel as powerful. Like you're not going to get the ocean experience in a park.
So I'll totally dive into that.
Yes, totally dive into that.
I'll totally dive into that. So, there's a space within nature. So let me kind of back up really quick. So I run retreats for men and women in the Grand Canyon and in Alaska. The Grand Canyon retreats are going to end post-January of 2023 because they're redoing the water pipeline throughout the entire Grand Canyon, and who knows how long it's going to take. And I'm moving more into corporate and speaking, which I'm excited about. The thing is, though, and the reason I bring this up is because there's a difference between the land healing and the water healing. Okay, your body is going to react, your mind, your spirit, your soul differently to the grounding mechanism of land than it is to water and the cleansing and the washing of who you are. So the beautiful thing, though, about nature is that it's around us, within us, and a part of us every single day. We just don't even realize it. So what I always tell my clients when we're lying down on the bridge at the bottom of the Grand Canyon watching the stars fall, I always tell them there is somebody else right now watching that same star fall too. You just don't know where they are, right? And the beautiful thing about nature is that it's ever evolving, it's ever unfolding, and it's there for us. We, unfortunately, as humans, have become so conditioned to go to our phones, to go to our computers, to go, ask for help in a therapist's office, which, again, that's amazing. I did the same during my recovery journey. And yet we're underutilizing the one piece that is so important, which is getting our bodies outside to slow down and somatically heal from the things that we have lived through.
Yeah.
You can't, when we're sitting in an office, stating the same thing, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, and we're in the story. When we're in the story so much, we're in our head so much, we're inside so much, we're missing out on that vital piece of stepping outside of the story and creating a new aliveness within our world today. And so that is the place to feel most alive. It's scientific proof. Like, where we feel most alive is actually in nature.
Yeah.
And so getting our butts outside and just literally plopping ourselves down onto the grass in the park, you're right, it may feel different than if you're on, a 10,000 foot mountain in Southern California, and yet the clouds are still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changes with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look up into the sky and you see the clouds are still the same as they would be if you were on top of the mountain. That said, the energy may feel a little bit different, because you've got the energy of the movement of, the city and the city lights and the city, like everything that's happening within the city, versus when you're out in nature and like literally in the middle of the High Sierra Mountains, it's calm, right? And so the one thing, though, that will always get us out of our story, out of our head, out of our frontal lobe, is creating awe and wonder in our moments. Mm-hmm. And so you can find awe and wonder simply by lying on the grass in the middle of the park and looking up at the clouds and taking yourself back to, for example, when I was a child, and remembering, okay, when did I do this when I was a kid? And when did I find awe and wonder in the clouds, not giving a crap about what was happening around me?
Right.
Right. And so that's going.
Kids are great for that.
What's that?
I said kids are great for that. And
kids are great for that. Kids are great for that. And, we all have that child within us that is actually a seriously amazing tool for healing, because they're not afraid of failure. They're not afraid of trying something new. They find awe and wonder in the moments, right? They forgive. They know how to move their bodies to release the trauma within themselves. Yeah. And so that's why when I wrote my book, I started with the child within each one of us. I had no idea why I started the book. That it was really funny. I was writing the book during the pandemic, and I was like, I don't know why I'm being called to start with this, but I'm being called to start with this. And so I did. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's a part of what I do with my clients today, which is go back to that child within you, that creative child within you that wasn't afraid to try something new either.
Right. Well, and I think being out in nature, depending on how far out you go, can require you to try something new. Well, if you're going to go hiking, or even if you're taking your tent and your water and your food with you and you're going to spend the night, that's a lot of people don't do that. So that's new.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and I really liked what you said about the different healing from the ocean or from the water than from being in the forest or the mountains. That was interesting too.
It's, people don't quite, so this is the other thing, is that, when we're using nature for intentional healing purposes, it's very different than just going into nature and being like, okay, well, now I got to go for a walk through the park today. Right. And so the awareness piece is really big. When I was going through my recovery, I would grab my paddleboard and go out onto the Pacific Ocean, and I would just paddle. And I would just, allow myself to be present with what was happening around me. And if it was whales were coming out of nowhere, or dolphins would come out of nowhere, and I'd be paddling with them. And, one of the coolest experiences I had was when I was out there with a bunch of people, and they all went in, because it looked like it was going to start to get windy and cloudy, and the weather wasn't the best. Well, I mean, I don't really believe in like bad weather, so I just believe in weather. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stay out here for just a little bit. And then this mama and baby whale came up out of nowhere and surfaced right next to my board. I have a video of it, and I didn't know that there were even two. And this mama came up, and I actually got to like look in her eye.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, when you're looking in the eye of a creature, that,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter if it's a creature that's, you know, the ant, if it's the eye of the ant, where you're so much larger than it, but then you're just witnessing how these ants, you know, move throughout their environment to create together, right? They're creating homes, they're creating whatever it is that they're doing. Or if it's the eye of a whale, where you're like, dang, this thing, if it like flips, it could tip my board, you know?
Yeah.
And yet what you're realizing is that you're so connected regardless of what the creature is.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that's why there's horse therapy. That's why there's, you know, there's people use animals within therapy, is because they can feel your emotions and almost tell you like, hey, you're a little bit something right now. What's going on with you?
Right.
Like, I really believe when I was out there that there were dolphins that could feel what was going on with me, which is why they would come up. And, or, you know, the mama whales or whatever it was. And I had many encounters like that, where I truly believe from my heart and soul that it's not a fluke. It's like, oh, I'm feeling this, you know, I need to come up. Like, what is this that's above me that I'm feeling this energy or whatever it is? Because really, that's what we are. We're all energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all connected.
Yeah,
absolutely. So you said something intriguing at the beginning of your story about how being out in nature got you to this place of forgiveness. And I'm curious what the role of forgiveness in your journey has been, because I don't know that everybody tunes into what it is, and because, you know, forgive and forget. And we get a little wounded around just how we're supposed to forgive people. Right.
Well, like, who's made the rules?
Right.
That's truly what I want to like start with. Who the heck made the rules? Right. Like, if you which just like cracks me up, because I mean, being 48 and now realizing like, why not? You know, why not try something different? Why not start again? Why not, like, you have this one life. Who's making the rules? You or somebody else? And so, you know, when it came to forgiveness, it's a funny story. I didn't even realize what I was doing. And I I truly mean that. There's a lot of times where, and I think that that's like the art brain of me, that creative, like the way that I organically live my life a lot. And understand, like, I have 3 sons as well. And so I'm a mom. My schedule is very scheduled. My days are always like, you know, I get the text messages from my kids, you know, they're college age, and my younger one who's in high school. And I'm very like this as well. Right. And yet I've got this organic kind of space in the way that I create my life. And when it came to forgiveness, I didn't realize that that's what I was even doing until I was asked to do this TED Talk. And I thought they wanted me to do a TED Talk on nature. I was like, sure, I'll do a TED Talk on nature. Cool. Like, whatever you want. And then she started asking me about my recovery, my journey, and how did you get to this space? And then she asked about, and I said, well, I've learned how to forgive. And she's like, well, how do you define forgiveness? And I said, well, I don't forget anything that happened. I honor that it happened, and then I learned from it. And we looked up the definition of forgiveness in the dictionary, and it said to forgive is to forget. It was like the process of forgetting. And I went, oh, no. This is where I like literally was like, who makes the definitions and who makes the rules, right? And so if 2 people witness a car accident, they're going to witness 2 different things. Yes. Based on where their perspective is, based on where they're standing. And so this is where I really want to emphasize this with people's healing journeys too, where their journeys of life, it's not only healing journeys, literally like their journey of life, right? Is that you have choice every day. You have a choice to get up out of bed. You have a choice to put your clothes on. You have a choice to make your bed, not make your bed. We all have choices. And so that choice to forgive for me was also that allotment of saying, like, I don't want to forget what happened, Because if I forgot what happened, how am I going to learn from it? How am I going to know my patterns? How am I going to know what got me there? How am I going to accept responsibility and accountability for my part in what happened? Because I still have accountability and responsibility as well for my own healing journey and whatever that looks like, even if it's the smallest of things. And so if it's accountability and responsibility for holding on to shame that I didn't necessarily need to hold on to for so long. And so there's this space of, which just, I really want people to dive into, of define what it is for you, and also know that this is a practice that you step into every day. It's not a one and done. Forgiveness is not like, okay, I forgive you, we're good, I need to be done with this. It is something where every day you wake up and make a choice of, what am I choosing to step into? What am I choosing to let go of? Where am I choosing to self-forgive? Where am I choosing to forgive others? Where am I choosing to forgive the world for whatever their part is in all of this? It's a beautiful process. And, again, like, I didn't realize that I was going through this process of forgiveness until someone asked me that. And where the nature part comes in is that it was out in nature that I was somatically healing. I was letting go of the pain. I was facing the things that hurt me most. If it was the betrayal from others, the betrayal of my ex-husband, the betrayal of, so many people that knew about things that I didn't know that they knew until I realized that they knew. And there was a lot of forgiveness that I had to step through in order to get to the side of light and enlightenment, and not holding on to the things that were like really could have killed me.
Yeah.
They could have killed me. They could have taken my life. And that's not me just like throwing words out there. Like, PTSD and trauma it can kill you. Mm-hmm. And so, I remember there was one time when I was standing on a rock in Sequoia National Park, and I looked out and I just had this enlightening moment. And it's actually on my Facebook page, where I was looking out and I just went, this world is so vast. And there's millions of trees below me, millions of trees. And there's this sky that just goes on forever. And these two birds came down out of nowhere and went right over my head. And I just thought to myself, I don't want to hold on to this anymore. I don't want to. And I need my freedom, and I'm going to end up getting a divorce, and I'm going to be just fine. And I have no idea what this looks like. I have no idea what my world is going to look like. I have no idea what my life is going to look like. I have no idea if I'm going to get into a partnership again, which I'm not right now, which is totally fine. That's my choice. And at the same time, it was like this freedom of releasing the pain that had also held me back. And I knew that I had to walk through this space of forgiveness in order to let go of that pain, so that I could experience what truly was and is the reason that I'm here.
And being out in nature helped facilitate that for you, because you could look at things and they felt more connected. Like what?
So the frontal lobe, to get scientific about it,
sure, yeah.
When you're in your trauma, you're in your story, and you ruminate. Ruminate. And let me tell you, if you read the book, girl, I was ruminating. I was like, every person that I look back today and I literally am like, how? And I think that the further out you get from the space that you were in, the more that you realize how deep that you were in.
Yeah.
Because it's like climbing out of the depths of hell, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And nobody will completely understand your journey or your story but you. However, there are people that have been there in a similar space that also get it. And so I know there are people listening right now. They're like, yep, get that. Whatever the depth of hell is for you. I mean, I was climbing out and I was like, okay, I'm doing better. I'm doing better. I'm doing better. And now I'm on this other space where I look back and I literally say, like, whoa, that was deep. That was a deep, 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 deep space. And being in nature, though, what it did is that it got me out of the rumination of my story long enough for me to be able to take that next step. Okay. And so the more that you get out there, the more that the frontal lobe of your brain slows, which is where we ruminate. Yes. That's where we are constantly in the space of like, How could they have? What happened? How did I? Why did I? How did I not see this? Like that shame, that progression. And the more that we ruminate, the more we have a hard time getting off of that space, off of that like wheel, right? Of
Well, and,
story.
and I think our phones keep us in that space of rumination.
100%.
And then we try to shut it off by watching TV or drinking or
Well, we numb,
partying, and
yeah,
and
right? We numb
yes,
in a different
exactly.
way. And so when you numb in a different way, you're literally just shutting it down, but you're not giving the creative space of your brain to even be enlightened. And so you're literally shutting your whole brain down. I'm not saying I didn't do that too. Girl, I got it. I mean, I was like, I went through a space too, where I would have nights where I was just like out with my girlfriends going, okay. And then I'd wake up going, really, Sarah? Like that's that for me. It's a part of, and I'm very honest about that. I did not have an issue. I didn't have a problem, but there were still nights where I was like, I just want it all to stop because it's so crappy. Like, I just want it to stop. And the story, the loop is so deep within your brain that it's hard to get it to stop.
Yeah.
The space though, that I would get it to stop, where it was most enlightening, was when I would be on the water or when I would be in the mountains. And I didn't have access to anything else. I didn't have access to wine. I didn't have access to my phone. I had access to nothing.
Right.
I literally was out there like on top of El Capitan going, okay, it's me and one of my friends, and that's it, alone camping on top of El Cap. And I'm like, the world's pretty cool up here.
Yeah.
The world's pretty cool up here, because this is actually what the world is meant to be like. Right? It's not meant to actually stay in the story. And so it's meant to enliven you and to create whatever it is that you choose. And so when I was out there, I would shut the frontal lobe of my brain. The back part of my brain would rise, if we're going to get a little scientific here, which is where the creativity flows, right? And that's where I could see things differently.
Yeah.
So you can do this anywhere. Understand that. This is not like you don't have to go to the top of El Cap. You can go, because now I'm so busy these days that I don't get out as much as I'd like to, but I still go down to the beach for 20 minutes and I can just sit there and say, okay, I can zone out with the waves and allow myself to meditate through that space and allow my brain to slow down long enough that I'm like, okay, it's in the breath, it's in the body, it's in that alignment of everything, that I'm like, okay, like, who are you right now? Right? What do you know to be true? If I'm having one of those moments, whatever it is, and to get myself out of that story, it's quite cool.
Yeah. So
it's quite cool.
You could go sit outside in a park or
absolutely
do this. Yeah.
I do it all the time. I don't wear shoes in the morning. People know me as the girl who, the woman who walks her dog every morning without her shoes on, regardless of, if it's raining or it's sunny or it's 45 degrees. I don't care. Like, I ground myself. I walk without my shoes on, and, that's my space. Do you have to do that? No, you can still just go to the park and open your window, watch the clouds, breathe in the air. That's all a part of it.
So that's kind of a grounding where you're taking your senses and you're really in the moment. Like, what do I hear?
Right.
How does the air feel when I breathe it in? It's cool. It's refreshing. Yeah. What do I hear? What do I smell? Anything? Maybe I smell.
Do I taste anything?
Do I? Yeah. What do
I mean,
feel?
am I tasting? Yeah. What am I feeling? Like, there's this, the difficulty with PTSD or with any sort of trauma is that, we escape our body.
Oh yeah.
And really what we need to do is to come back to the vessel of us, which is our body. And we need to be in. And so that's that space of like coming home to who we are, allowing ourselves to calm. We also get really comfortable, with what is very toxic and not safe when we are in trauma. We know, and I know this from my own, man, we could keep going on forever, but I know this like from my own space, which is, I became very comfortable with the heightenedness, right, of life. I became very comfortable with what actually was not safe for me, which was constantly being on the go, constantly in the, looking for the next. It was like, I know there's a fire coming. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. I became comfortable with that, because when you become comfortable with that, you know how to put that out. Right. And so what felt really weird for me and uncomfortable was peace and calm.
Yes. Yes.
And so now, like me being able to go into the space of the nature or space of wherever that was, which is why I guide people into retreats now. And I'm like, no phone, no phones are shut off. This is what we're going to do. We're going to breathe. I can't even tell you how many times that we all of a sudden will stop for lunch and everybody will fall asleep. I'm like, literally, like they fall asleep on the ground, and I'm sitting there and I just smile because I'm like, this is so awesome.
Yeah.
They're so at peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're so at calm, and they haven't felt this for so long.
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful. It's
That
just
is
such a
beautiful.
beautiful space to be in. And that's why they're so transformational, is because it gets them out of, what is actually very unhealthy.
Right. Okay. Well, so for the people listening to this,
Yeah.
They've probably identified with your story of trauma and this issue around forgiveness, and they're probably not sure, like, okay, well, what is this forgiveness?
Tell me what to do.
How do I do this? What do I do?
Tell me what to do. I get that all the time. Just tell me what to do, Sarah. Just give me the tools. And I'm like, oh, you guys, isn't it fun? So, is that what you would like me to do?
Yeah, like how do you do forgiveness?
I 100% will give them some steps. So what I always tell people is it starts with you. Everything in this lifetime, everything in this world starts with you. Okay. So don't give your power to somebody else's story, right? Before you actually take care of your own first. And I'm somebody that used to do that myself until I no longer did. I'm like, ooh, this is pretty cool. I get to take care of me first. Get the mask on me. Take care. Like when you're in the airplane, I get to take care of my own mask. Okay. And so when it comes to like really working into the self-development, the personal development piece, right? Always start with you. And then when you get to that place of like, okay, I'm feeling healthy enough, I'm feeling strong enough, I can start stepping into the space of being with others, then fine. When it comes to forgiveness, it always starts with self-forgiveness first. So it's self-forgiveness, then forgiveness for others, and then forgiveness for the world. And the reason I say this is because you always want to learn from your experiences first. What part did you play in anything? We always take a part in anything. I know I did myself. I had to forgive myself through this space with my ex-husband of me literally setting aside myself and seeing red flags, but choosing, like when I would have the conversations with him or whatever it was, I listened to him over me. And so there's the littlest of things is a process of self-forgiveness for you. And so there's 4 steps to self-forgiveness. First of all, what happened? Okay. So like, what is it that you want to self-forgive for? Okay. So for me, I'll use an example of not listening to the red flags. Okay. I have to forgive myself for not listening to the red flags. What caused it? What caused you to not listen to the red flags? For me, it was my past patterns, the way that I hadn't healed from everything at 17, what I knew to be true, thought I knew to be true, but wasn't. Right. What would you do differently next time? Well, I've done a lot of work on myself. I know my values. I know my integrity. I know my truth, my honesty. I know my intuition. I know my heart and my soul. And now I know, that when it goes, listen to it. When my intuition goes, listen to it. It's not about the external, it's about the internal, right? Yes. And then number 4 is forgive yourself. That means sitting with yourself and saying, okay, I'm going to put my hand over my heart, this beautiful beating heart that's mine, that's been gifted to me in this lifetime. Put a hand over my intuition, my gut, right? My sacral, and literally sit with, I forgive me. I forgive me. I forgive me for my faults. I forgive me for my indiscretions, for not listening to me. I forgive me for all of those red flags that I heard and chose to listen to others first over myself. And then you're choosing differently. What would you do differently? My choice is from now on, I'm going to listen to me from here on out, because I know that when my intuition and my heart speaks, this is mine to listen to. No one else's. Yeah. Because I am a perfectly beautiful, creative, resourceful, whole human being as I am. Right. And so being able to sit with yourself and have those conversations with self is so important. And it's something that we don't do enough of. People, I have my clients do this and they're like, okay, that feels really weird. That feels really, really weird. I'm like, it feels weird to tell yourself that you love you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels weird sometimes. And it's the most beautiful thing that you could do.
It's beautiful and it's important.
It's so important. It's
Yeah.
so important because here's the thing. If we love ourselves that deeply,
Mhm.
it's not a selfish thing. It's not an ego thing. It's nothing like that. It's literally the most selfless thing that you could do. And what's most important is that you're a gift. Like, we are all gifts on this world, and we are gifts here for this lifetime. And it's honoring the gift of who you are and why you were placed here in the first place.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
This has been a very packed conversation.
Yeah, always is.
But I hope people get a lot out of it. I think you have a lot of really good message for the world and for people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Sarah Schulting-Kranz. I'm assuming you'll put all of them. My name's so long.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Facebook, Sarah Schulting-Kranz. My Facebook business is Live Boldly with Sarah Schulting-Kranz. I have a podcast,
Okay.
which you're going to be on, which is
Yes.
super exciting. Live Boldly with Sarah Schulting-Kranz. And then through my website, Sarah Schulting-Kranz.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm there. And then my book you can find, it's called Walk Through This, Harness the Healing Power of Nature and Travel the Road to Forgiveness. And here's the copy. There you go. Beautiful. And you can find that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, really anywhere.
Anywhere. Yeah.
Anywhere.
Okay. Awesome. Well, good. I hope people do tap into the wisdom that you're bringing to all of us.
Thank you.